I'm just delighted by these roses and carnations and things, and I just thought, if I just stand here, you won't notice I'm here. It's like camouflage, a rose among roses. I'm just kidding. Look, I'm delighted to be here. It has been a bit of a trek. I had to go through Wellington. No one goes through Wellington voluntarily. God, there's someone here from Wellington. Look at them, they're all weather-beaten, half-drowned. Actually, it was really calm there today. I once flew into Wellington, it was before 9/11, and Qantas pilots would sometimes ask me up into the cockpit and say, "Do you want to come up and sit with us when we land?" And I'd say, "Yes, absolutely, it'd be great." We came into Wellington. It was a day just like today, and we're flying in, and it was flat calm. I'd never seen. I lived in Wellington for 7 years. I never saw it like that. It was flat calm. There was reflections on the water. It was gorgeous. And I said, "Oh, this is fantastic. I've never seen Wellington look so good." And they said, "Oh, mate, we like a bit of wind in Wellington." I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "It's a very short runway. We like a headwind." Anyway, we didn't come off the end. But today I was thinking, I don't want to end up in the drink in Wellington because I've got a speech tonight. Anyway, look, I'm very pleased to be here. And I thought I'd tell you a love story. Nikki was nice enough to refer to one or two of the things I've done. And I've been in one or two love stories. I don't get asked to do that so much now. If I've got a bed scene, it's usually with pajamas on and I'm reading a book. That's what happens with age. But this is a love story, and it's not just a love story, it's also a true story, and it's about an old friend of mine, Nigel Nutt. We first met here at school in Christchurch when we were 10 or 11, something like that. And almost immediately he became my best friend. And I think what bonded us initially was that we both had the same initials, NN, and we both had the same lame first name, Nigel. And neither of us liked being called Nigel very much. And we decided that we would change our names. Why not? And we liked reading Westerns. And in Westerns, people were called things like Sam or Bill. They'd never called Nigel. It was never a cowboy called Nigel. And so we changed our names, and I became Sam, and he became Nigel. It was a very sensible decision when you think about it, because 20 years later I had a career in films, and there's no way you'd have a career in films being called Nigel Neill. But Bill became Bill Nutt as far as all our friends were concerned, and he was forever Bill for me. But it was more than that shared first names. He was also the funniest person that I'd ever met. And it wasn't that he told jokes. He didn't tell jokes. He was the joke. He was a walking joke. Everyone was a joke. I mean, the world was a joke with Bill. He had that way of making the world seem funny and brighter and lovely. And he was a lot of fun, and everybody loved Bill. They loved him. And we stayed the closest to friends right up until we left school. And we left that boarding school. And at school we'd shared studies. When I'd go to his farm. He lived at Taitapu. I'd go to his farm on Sundays. We did pretty much everything together, and we did plays. We were in plays. We liked acting. He was actually the most gifted comic actor that I've ever worked with the possible exception of Robin Williams. But you know, it'll be a pretty close-run thing. And you know, it just came naturally to him. It was like breathing. He could do pratfalls and double takes and all these things that we didn't even know what they were, but they just came like breathing to him. He could just walk on a stage and people would start laughing, and then he would stand still and they'd laugh twice as hard. You know, he didn't have to do anything. It was just an extraordinary gift. And you know, we got bigger, and we both found girlfriends about the same time. We liked smoking and drinking and all the things you weren't supposed to do when you're 16. And you know, girls loved Bill. He was sort of goofy looking, but he was charming and he was funny. And women liked that, you know. And they certainly did with Bill. He could charm the birds from the trees. He made them laugh. And a party never really started until Bill turned up. And then he finished school about a year before me, and he went back to farming, and he was a party boy, and he loved coming to Christchurch and getting on the Terps. And then one crazy party night, just another crazy party night, he was out way too late, and he was driving home his Ford Anglia, and he went to sleep. And the car rocketed off the road, and Bill went through the windscreen at God knows what speed. And that was it. That was it for parties, and that was it for pretty much everything. And the life of the party was at the hospital down there, struggling for his life. And he was in a coma for, I think, probably something like 4 months, and we never expected him to open his eyes, but he did. And gradually he woke up, and very gradually he couldn't really speak. He couldn't do anything much. And he was in hospital for months and months and months more. And how he'd survived at all, none of us really knew. But gradually he got better, but never entirely. He spoke slowly and in a monotone for the rest of his life, and he walked eventually, but very poorly. And then he went home, and he knew he would never be the same. We knew he would never be the same. And it was cruel. It was cruel, and he plunged into deep depression. Eventually he tried suicide. It didn't work. He failed. The bullet went the wrong way. And the world was very dark, and it was very sad. But then, after a few years, somehow, he found, I'm not sure how, he found the Laura Fergusson Trust. And that's when everything began to change. And he went to live at Ilam, and he found a home, and his memory began to return, and his inimitable sense of humor began to return. And best of all, he became happy again. And it was wonderful to see him there. I'd go and see him at such time as I could when I'd get back to New Zealand. And I cannot tell you how happy that made me feel to see him happy there. And how really touched I was by how genuinely cared for he was by the people there. They loved Bill. They really dug him. And then he found a job. He was the gate man at the hospital. I don't know if any of you remember this, but there was a sort of gate on the bridge. And when you crossed the bridge, then there was Bill. He'd be there all day, every day, smoking cigarettes one after another. joking dryly to the nurses and the doctors and the patients that would go across. He was supposed to be the gate man. I don't think he had ever denied access to anybody. But everyone loved him there. They loved him. And then something else miraculous happened. He fell in love with someone else at the Sioux who lived at Ireland with him. And for me, this was the best love story. She was sweet and he was funny, and it was magic. And they were utterly devoted to each other. And I mean, it made you cry to watch it. She gave his life meaning, and he did the same for her. And they only separated when Bill died. That was about 20 years ago. And yeah, I still miss Bill, and I loved him as well. We all did. And I'm eternally grateful to the Laura Fergusson Trust, everyone who worked there for the care and the love that they gave him all those years, to my friend. So, a little bit emotional about this, but that's why I agreed to be a patron here, and that's also why I ask all of you, and the wider public as well, to support, not least financially, this extraordinary organisation. Because there are many other Bills, Nigels and Sues, and they need the same care and the same love as Bill. So, long live the Laura Fergusson Brain Injury Trust.